Okay, guys, 1 second. Hold on a second. Okay, guys, hold on, man. What's up, guys? Just waiting for my throat to warm up. All right, waiting for him to show up. I'll probably be off camera, but you're gonna hear me. What I need is coffee to wake up. We're waiting for my friend. He won't be my friend for too long. How's everybody doing? Yeah, I saw that, Romeo. You think you're cool, huh? Sending me a new song? Dirchito piwale. Someone needs to make Sam into an anime. Oh yeah, I like that. Oh no 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 no. So I'm just doing that from my throat. Oh no 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 no. Oh no no no. What's up, Grease? How you doing? All right, friend. I'll be off camera, but you can hear me, sir. Can you hear me, sir? I can't hear you, sir.
Hello there. Can you hear me? I
I
haven't spoken. That's why.
All right, that's what it was. I thought I was reading your heart and your mind. What's up, friend? You were on Kennedy Report?
Yeah, it was on the Kennedy report,
What did you guys
and
discuss?
there were far fewer annoying fools on the chat today than there was last time.
Hmm. So, what was the topic? Can you tell people what you were talking about with Kennedy?
Um, the topic was Darwin.
Hmm.
I was discussing Darwin as a person, the history of Darwinism. So I wasn't talking about evolution because people seem to think that's all there is to say about Darwin. I was discussing the history of Darwin, Darwin's ideology, Darwin's thoughts, and how Darwinism is social Darwinism, it is eugenics, and it is the foundation, one of the major foundations of the Nazi movement, the communists. Marx was a crazy Darwinist. In fact, when Marx had his funeral, they gave a speech about Darwin at his funeral.
Wow.
Hitler was a major Darwinist, and in fact, Nazism was effectively implemented Darwinism. Nazism and Darwinism are synonymous, essentially.
I see. So, I know that Kennedy, I can hear my voice in the background. I hate my voice.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know that Kennedy's coming under fire by some Catholics because he's was saying stuff about Martin Luther that you actually shared with him, quotations from Luther's own works and biographers of Luther that even Kennedy's fellow Catholics felt maybe cannot be true. You see what's going on? The level of ignorance that we
Yeah,
have.
I did contact them. I did let them know, and but some people think it's unchristian to win an argument. You know, you're supposed to
Yeah.
roll over and play dead, or you're supposed to turn the other cheek. In fact, they don't. They mean your bum cheeks and bend over and give them some Vaseline and hope it doesn't hurt. I mean, that seems to be
They're gonna
Christian.
say, they're gonna say you're not being Christ-like, brother. Come on, I don't see Jesus in you. Got to be Christian, brother. I don't see Jesus in you, man. See, yeah, I know, but anyway,
Sorry, man, wrong guy.
I know, but
I mean, do we stand up for the truth? I mean, the truth is
exactly.
the truth. Do we stand up for it? Do we have the facts on our side? We prove our case, and then do we refuse to back down?
Well, what it is nowadays, people want subscribers and financial support, so they have to be politically correct and nice, lest they lose subscribers and financial support. So people are compromising their values and their integrity for numbers, status, and money. May God purge us. May the Lord Jesus cleanse us. May the Holy Spirit seal us that we do not prostitute ourselves for money or for numbers. In Jesus' name, that we practice what we preach. But you're here now to continue to demonstrate that socialism, atheism, two sides of the same coin. You cannot be a socialist without being an atheist. Now, is it possible? And I know the answer, but I want you to say this. People can be atheists without being socialists, even though they do not understand that socialism and atheism are so intertwined. They're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, but if you're an atheist, you by default support the socialist position because you will tacitly approve socialist decisions and you won't oppose certain things because they're by default socialist. And if you're an atheist, we know you're by default anti-Christian and you will go against that. So ideas have consequences.
Yeah, yep. So you guys heard it. Even though there are atheists who are not socialists, it is an inconsistency. Like our dear friend Andrew Martin, who's one of my mods, he's not a socialist communist. He loves the historical Jesus, and yet still he doesn't give his life to Jesus Christ because he still has doubts about God's existence. And yet he's one of the greatest supporters of Christianity. He attacks Islam and encourages people to follow Jesus Christ. Amazing. So this guy's a walking contradiction. You believe it? But he's a good guy. Maybe soon, we pray, he will give his life to Jesus Christ. So, but anyway, with that said, friend, I know you had about 16 slides left to finish this series, I believe. So
It was halfway, like 30. I think we were halfway. So
all right, let's do this, sir. You're here. And
yeah,
by the
so
way,
what did you take away from the last presentation I did, Sam? What was your takeaway from that? What do you think you learned and what did you want the audience to learn?
well, I took away that, you have a certain set of skills and you're dangerous. No, well, I mean, the most disturbing aspect of all of this is that atheism turns out to be a much more dangerous ideology than Islam. And yet, people are so fixated on Islam and Muslims, they don't see that atheism is much more dangerous because some of the movers and shakers, those who are behind the scenes, those who have actually the power to impact society and culture, those who have the money, are actually socialists, fascists. And that means to be a socialist, a fascist, you have to be an atheist, which means that they're anti-Christian and want to destroy the Christian worldview. But you have a certain set of skills. I just want you to know that.
Yep. So I've got my sharing up. I'll just do a very short recap.
That's a very
so
nice.
I just want to remind you.
Before you say that, that's a very nice looking nose. I like that nose.
Very French. So yeah. So I want you to remember from the last talk that the founder of modern atheism, modern socialism, sorry, the guy who created the word socialism as we use it today is this Frenchman, an atheist, and not exactly the most, shall we say, mentally coherent guy, right? And like many, many others before him, the guy was suicidal. The guy was Darwin was a very sickly man, and Darwin was clearly mentally tortured, right? You can say the same. Marx as well. Marx was a very mentally tortured man, very violently aggressive man, emotionally, and also very sickly. So was Darwin. Darwin was very physically and emotionally sick. So was Martin Luther. People don't realize Martin Luther was a very sickly man. Also, mental, emotional disorders and outbursts and anger. So you must understand there's something about these people. They've sold their souls. They've gone against their conscience, and it seems to cause damage. So, yeah. So French social theorist, he created the new Christianity. So don't forget, when socialism was created as a fully fledged ideology, it was meant to replace Christianity. It was called the new Christianity. And Marx and everyone else built on top of this idea a number of heresies, shall we say. So socialism is a Christian heresy. Atheism is as it is today, is a Christian heresy. All of these things are revolts against Christianity, right? And he wanted to abolish private property. And out of this idea came the discipline in university we now call sociology, which is another one of these communist ideas which came out of atheism and came out of this socialism, a corrupted form of the perfected man, right? Out of a corrupted form of Christianity. Right, so we were talking about technocracy, so that's what they want to give us, and how these ideas have led to things like the UN, who don't have our best interests in mind, right? And okay, then we spoke of these industrialists. So let me see, what is technocracy? So this is where we ended. And technocracy is an organizational structure or system of governance where decision makers are selected on the basis of technological knowledge. So the technologically smartest, like your Mark Zuckerbergs, are the leaders because they have the money, they have the access, they have the gnosis. So this puts them in charge. This means that the wealthiest, it's basically you become the new peasant class. Technocracy was popular in the early 20th century, and it's very popular today as a leftist answer for governmental change. Technocrat, the term technocrat is a pejorative, it's an insult. In the 21st century, referring to individuals often related to higher learning institutions exercising governmental authority because of elitist knowledge. So these are by default elitists, and these will be socialists. Technocracy appeared in W. H. Smith's 1919 article, Technocracy, Ways and Means to Gain Industrial Democracy. Democracy, as they mean it, is socialism. Don't forget, your party today, your Democratic Party today is a socialist party. Democracy is really a word related to socialism. The word entered the mainstream in the 30s when the technocracy movement gave an alternative form of socio-economic organization. Remember, they hope and change. They were bringing hope and change to the United States. A new form of socio-economic organization, just like the one in Russia by coincidence. And compared to the troubled Western states of the early 20th century, most specifically the United States, they were modeling themselves after the whole Russian ideal. With the success of the New Deal and Allied victory, the movement faded into obscurity, although it survives today. Now we come to this Frenchman, Auguste Comte. He founded the word sociology and a religion called positivism. So don't forget, the Nazis had positive Christianity because your religion is negative Christianity. So he created positivism or positive Christianity. But I wonder where the Nazis got that idea. He created the science of sociology, and he told his parents at 14 that he had no belief in God. Intellectual progress and understanding of reality, he said, were dependent on physical data and observation. It's really just a rephrasing of the Greek sophist idea, the pagan Greek idea of man is the measure of all things. So he described it as a religion of humanity. So he's a humanist, a religion of humanity, and only what we see. Now, of course, man doesn't have perfect knowledge. Man doesn't have perfect measurement. So therefore, we can't know all things. Therefore, what we try to do always breaks down because the best laid plans of mice and men. So he was trying to pretend we are gods and we have perfect knowledge because they honestly believed that they would achieve perfect knowledge. And that's why they're so excited about AI. Your thoughts, Sam, before I go on?
No, so far I'm trucking with you, and they're excited by AI, even though AI may take a life on its own and reality imitates art. Like they say, life imitates art. I mean, well, you can talk about it a little later because I just saw something about AI that's really scary unless the Lord Jesus intervenes. But continue.
Yeah, so the science of sociology, don't forget, the Bible warns in Timothy about science falsely so called. Because Gnostics like to call what they do science. The Muslims have the ilm, the science, the ulama, the people of science, the men of knowledge, not just the men of knowledge, but technically the men of science. And of course, they have the ijma, the consensus, and the consensus says that the earth has a fever and it's going to burn up and you're at fault. Right? It developed through several stages, what he called empirio-criticism, logical positivism, logical empiricism, and finally, they created what they call analytic philosophy. So basically mathematical philosophy, right? In 1826, he began a series of lectures on his system of positive philosophy, but he suffered a serious nervous breakdown. And today he is considered to be mentally ill. So in other words, these great men of history like Marx, right, like Darwin, Luther, and so many others were nervous train wrecks and are not considered healthy. But yet we're supposed to believe that their ideas are unaffected by their actual dementia, by their immorality, and by their insane condition. But somehow they produce amazing ideas. Like if a painter was making paintings of pedophilia, we'd say, wait, that painting has nothing to do with the ideas in his head. Would you agree, Sam? People are honestly making that excuse these days.
Yeah, I've seen that, especially when they criticize over Luther. So one guy said it's a genetic fallacy and ad hominem. So what if Luther was deranged? What does that got to do with me as a Protestant? See, they don't see the connection because the Protestantism is the fruit of this madman's mind. Now, just so I can understand, you're saying that these individuals ended up having severe psychological, emotional
Issues,
issues, traumatic issues, and
physical issues, yeah.
Hmm. That's what happens when you oppose the true God and suppress the knowledge of the true God, even if you claim to be a Christian.
So yeah, he argued that in the name of science, the theological and metaphysical stages of human development were a result of primitive superstition and ignorance. In other words, knowledge was required. The gnosis was required to move out of ignorance and superstition. You see, so theology is a mistake, is what he's saying. But we've got a new theology for you based on knowledge. So the positive stage, in which factual knowledge is gathered and interpreted scientifically, we've got a formula for you, would show what men are and how they should live. So we will determine your life by science. Science says that you have one leg missing, therefore you're a drag on the human race. Please report this way for compulsory euthanasia. Thank you. And that's right.
Sad.
Right. And so the science of sociology was born, and it was destined to rival ethics and theology in their efforts to relate man to reality. So sociology is really a competing system to replace biblical morality, God's morality, and theology. It's another theology, just a scientific theology. Again, another competitor for Christianity. Sam.
Nothing to do with Islam, though. That's an important thing that you're bringing out. Nothing to do with Islam. I'm happy for that.
Yeah. Positivism, a religious philosophy. Okay. I'm quoting Britannia here, Britannicus, right? So the basic affirmations of positivism are all knowledge regarding matters of fact is based on the positive data of experience. So in other words, this again is subjectivist. If you think of it that way, and it denies, for instance, logic is not something you can prove. Logic is something you literally take on faith, right? That's an old psychological, or rather philosophical axiom from the time of the Greeks, that you have to assume the world is orderly and that there's logic. Logic is not something that is physically in the world. It is something that is metaphysical. Yeah, and that's exactly, and Abdel Nasih, and that exactly comes from Darwin. That's Darwin's contribution to the world. So beyond the realm of fact is that of pure logic and pure mathematics, except we don't have pure minds. But of course, Gnostics believe that while the body is evil, the body opposes the mind is pure. Only what is of the spirit is pure. Now, we can say that, for instance, works are evil because works are of matter. Works are done by our hands, which are evil, which is matter. The world is evil, the world is matter. So any interaction with the world is evil. Therefore, only what is of the mind is pure. Shall we call it sola fide? Would you say, Sam?
I see how you did that, sir. But as long as it has nothing to do with Islam, I'm okay. I'm trucking and I agree. So you're good.
All right. So understand there's this parallel here that's one might. So these were already recognized in the 18th century Scottish empiricist and skeptic David Hume as concerned merely with the relations of ideas, and in the later phase of positivism, they were classified purely formal sciences. Now, we have no pure logic because we are humans that interpret things. We are faulty, and often situations in life are fuzzy. It's not like everything's like a bunch of Lego blocks, okay? And in fact, Lego blocks don't have soft edges and don't always conform to the rough edges of life, right? Life doesn't always move in straight lines. So already they're claiming here that they will, in fact, they claim that they could predict everything and they could have a perfect morality based on mathematics and science, a perfect morality. They could solve every problem with maths. On the negative side, critical side, positivists became noted for their repudiation of metaphysics. So they had to get rid of metaphysics. So therefore, truth, integrity, faith, logic, gone, does not exist. They had to go against the Greeks here. So any speculation regarding the nature of reality that radically goes beyond any possible evidence that could either support or refute such transcendent knowledge claims. So they rejected anything that was metaphysical. And don't forget, Aristotle created the idea of metaphysics, basically the idea of a logic that encompasses the world, that the world is based on logic. There's an order that we just need to learn and see. But of course, they reject this, so therefore the world becomes chaotic, random. But this is actually a pagan idea because, don't forget, the pagans believed that, look, there were capricious gods, capricious forces we couldn't see. And the one god might decide that a ball will fall upwards today, left tomorrow, down the next day, and smack you in the face on the third day for no reason whatsoever. So therefore, they didn't develop scientific thinking because they thought the world was just random and chaos, whereas Christians looked at it and said, there's order. We have a clockmaker, and a clockmaker has to work according to order if you want to make a functioning, reliable clock that is consistent. And therefore, Christian thinking with Aquinas created scientific thinking. All right. So we've gone back to chaos here, which means now if you throw out logic, you throw out reason, you throw out morality, you now come up with their mathematical morality. So then you get Darwin. In its basic ideological posture, positivism is worldly, secular, and anti-theological. So sociology really infected universities, and it is anti-theological. It's anti-Christian, in other words. It's also anti-metaphysical. So it is purely based on, it's atheist. Strict adherence to the testimony of observation and experience is the all-important imperative of positivism. So basically, it's all shades of Protagoras, the Greek sophist, man being the measure. So if the world is chaos, what did he say there?
Yeah.
The world is chaos. The arguments of the atheists are meaningless too. And that is true. That is fantastic. Yes. On what basis are they correct? I mean, if it's all just atoms knocking together, I am not responsible for my thoughts. So their ideas are incoherent.
Yeah, I'm baffled. They want to reject all metaphysical concepts, realities, but then you're saying they want to base it on pure logic, pure mathematics, neither of which are physical material, right?
They're metaphysical concepts, exactly.
So I'm baffled. Do they know that they're contradicting themselves, or just they choose to be stupid?
I think they choose to be stupid. They're blinded. Somehow they're blinded. It's an hysterical blindness.
All right. There you go.
I mean, look, once you step away from the logos, you step into irrationality. So they are by default irrational. They don't embrace logos. Yep. Truth. Remember, because the universe is designed according to them for survival, not truth.
Stupid,
yeah.
Man.
Wow. Yeah, so that imperative was reflected in the contributions by positivists to ethics and moral philosophy, or shall we say lack of ethics and immoral philosophy, which were utilitarian. In other words, is this good for me? Right? How does this benefit me? What's in it for me? If it benefits me but harms you, it's okay. At least I get something out of it. That is Darwinian as well. That's reductionist and Darwinian. And the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people was their ethical maxim. Well, that's a very broad, very vague statement. It is not love thy neighbor. It is see to yourself first, and then what's good for the people? Well, it's like the Marxist law of economics, the Soviet law of economics, which is shortages will be equally divided amongst the poor, because now everyone's happy. So Comte was the founder of a religion, and he called it a religion in which the object of worship was not the deity of the monotheistic faiths, but humanity. Except, of course, they looked at certain members of humanity and said, you guys are the lesser races, the lower races. You guys are not as smart as us elites, us technocrats. We're the ones in charge. We're the ones with the brains. You guys, we might need to get rid of you. So for humanity, they meant them as humanity, the leaders of humanity. So understand, already you're starting to look at something that's extremely partial and extremely immoral. So Comte saw the work of the French Revolution as inadequate and incomplete. Oh boy. He applauded its attack on Catholicism, but he faulted it for failing to create a positive alternative to the old religious order. In other words, socialism failed in French Revolution, but we have to try it again because it wasn't tried properly. A new religion grounded in the scientific priesthood was the dream of Comte's system of social reorganization, scientific priesthood. Eerily similar to the French Revolution, Maximilian Robespierre's attempt to create a new secular religion with its own forms and secular saints. The French tried it in the French Revolution, but he was wanting to try it again, but properly this time. His religion had some bizarre religious ceremonies, just like the French Revolution atheists did. These are atheists, right? Now, here's a weird thing. There was a fool in the comments this morning. He was saying, you need to speak to an atheist. You need to ask an atheist what atheism means. You need to get your information from atheists. So I quoted a bunch of atheists, and he's like, those aren't real atheists.
Sure. Just like they're not real Muslims, ISIS and all them, yeah.
Yeah, but so, okay, we need to listen to atheists because atheists are allowed to define what they believe. Atheists are allowed to define their beliefs for themselves. Okay, these atheists defined it. Yeah, they're not right atheists. They're wrong atheists. Then that's not the right atheism. You're like, you people are incoherent fools. So his religion had bizarre religious ceremonies, okay? Praying to a worthy female saint. Comte was high priest, and he signed his letters with the title of high priest. The female saint happened to be his deceased wife. He was very besotted. He was highly unsuccessful with the chicks. Complete loser. Then he fell in love, and she died. And she became his his goddess. Sam, yeah?
Wow. So he worshipped his wife. Hey, at least. So here's a guy that's an atheist, but his wife is dead, and he now has canonized her, and he prays to her. Yeah, that's consistent
Yeah.
with atheism. Nothing to do with Islam, though.
Yeah, what we need to tell atheists is, look, that wasn't proper Christianity. Proper Christianity has never been tried.
Yeah.
So, a science of morality. So, adherents of his have built chapels of humanity in France and Brazil. Okay, so they're not a religion, they're atheists, but they have chapels of humanity, churches. In the US and Europe, his ideas contributed to the emergence of ethical societies and ethical churches, which led to the development of a movement called ethical culture, another sort of atheistic church. Congregational humanist and secular humanist organizations. Comte developed the religion of humanity to fulfill the cohesive function once held by traditional worship. So they redefined religion as something that provides social cohesion rather than something that pays homage to the deity of the world, right, to the god of the world. So they sort of took its functions, but not its higher role. So that's what they did. So atheists have co-opted the function of religion to bind society. His secular religion was a complete system of belief. Oh, Islam's also a complete system of belief and ritual with liturgy and sacraments, priesthood and pontiff. Odd that he's an atheist that hates God and hates the church. It was organized around the public veneration of humanity. We're praying to ourselves, referred to as the new the new supreme great being. Of course, during the French Revolution, they had the cult of the supreme being. So there you go. It's just a revival of the occult system of the French Revolution. This was supplemented in a positive trinity by the grand fetish, the earth, and the grand milieu, the cosmic space. Space, cosmos. Your thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, again, you see that this is Luciferian satanic, because what is the heart of Luciferian satanic worship? Worshipping self, worshipping you. You are God. Do what you want. Thelema. So here you see how atheism is anchored in Satanism, whether atheists like it or not.
Yeah. So he felt this would bring order to society because they had to destroy Christianity and then bring their order, their scientific order, their man-made religion, the stuff that came out of science, right, out of their heads. Comte thought that after the French Revolution, society needed order again. Yeah, so Hakam Isa, this shows how much is hidden in schools. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So he's also the creator of the word altruism, usually regarded as generous and selfless dedication to others. Now, altruism is both, though. See, on the one side, it's kind of nice, and the other side, it's anti-capitalist and anti-Christian. So we say, well, we're altruists, we're the good guys. The problem is, it slips in it kind of like a wedge. It gets in, makes a little crack, and then it starts to widen it because it's like, they say that you got the nice little temptation, that sin that brings all of the nastiness behind it. It's just one little drink, and next thing you're a drug addict on crack, right? And then you're selling your body for crack on the streets, that kind of story. Just one little small thing, and the next thing you know, that's what they intend with all these nice terms. So they're trying to replace biblical morality with scientific morality, this altruism. The medieval adoration of God must now be transmuted, transmutation, into the adoration of a new divinity, the goddess, humanity. And sacrifice for the sake of God is outdated. It must give way fully to sacrifice for the sake of others. And of course, the communists sacrificed a lot of people for the sake of the greater good, right? The Nazis sacrificed people for the greater good of the German people. The atheists regret, of course, they want to hide it. They have to hide it. They won't admit it. But legally, you need to make use of that, because now you can accuse them of proselytizing and forcing their religion into schools, universities, government, into secular spaces, because they are proselytizing religion. So you need to use lawfare, just like they use lawfare on the church. You need to use lawfare on them just as hard. And they're afraid of that happening. They are. Comte says that a man must be selfless. He must renounce the exorbitant selfishness that characterized the medieval pursuit of salvation. So you were selfish. You needed to work for other people, not for yourself. You needed to work for the man. You see, pursuing salvation, God's world, God's rewards. No, can't have that. Alchemy and socialism are always a toxic combination because you need to work for yourself, okay? So the true altruist must place others above self as the fundamental rule of life, and that his greatest virtue is self-sacrifice. In other words, total sacrifice with no expectation of return value in their behalf. So if the government says, look, you need to die so that others can live, so that because our failed system of feeding people is, it's not going to work. So yeah, you understand this leads to total tyrannical control of the population. And you have no will of your own. You are completely controlled and subservient. This is fascism. Everything within the state, nothing outside the state. Sam, before I go on.
Yeah, so I'm glad you hammered that point, because you see, it sounds almost Christ-like. Sacrifice yourself for others, because Jesus sacrificed his life. But what they really mean is, if they're in control and they have the power, then they will sacrifice you for their ideal. You are expendable, not them, not the person who's saying this. The person who's saying this, he is valuable and he's needed and he can't be sacrificed. But peons like me and Lloyd, who do not have influence or power or control, we are expendable, and we need to now bow to the system and be willing to be killed if it will help them accomplish their agenda. That's what it really means.
Yep. So let me change one thing, because I made a small typo, as always, in my stuff. It's actually 62 slides.
So you guys saw that, right? You see how
Yep.
demonic this is. They take Christian language, but then they redefine it to mean you may get sacrificed because you're expendable, not me. Whereas Jesus is God, he sacrificed his life. He didn't go around sacrificing other people's lives to bring about his will. No, they're saying you need to sacrifice. So if we need to kill you, you're expendable, you're not important, but we are. Our life is valuable, not yours.
Right. So altruism was coined to describe benevolent feelings that he considered innate, okay? Yet he could not manage to get along with his parents, his brothers and sisters. He did not get along with his wife, who was a complete loser, and then his wife left him. His wife abandoned him because he was a complete loser. Then he met someone, fell in love, and she died, right? Or most of the people, he was very, very unhappy. He was a very unhappy person, and people disliked him. His wife left him in 1842, right? And he said that altruism would bring progress, the consequences of industrial and technical breakthroughs for human societies. So we need technology. Technology would save man, right? And he also created what he called the positive catechism. Obviously, just like the Communist Manifesto was originally called the Communist Catechism of Faith, right? Was a catechism, the Communist Confession of Faith. So his religion was basically a ripoff of the Catholic Church. In Catechisme Positiviste, Comte defined his Church of Humanity's 7 sacraments. And the religion of humanity was described by Thomas Huxley as Catholicism minus Christianity, just like socialism is. In addition to a holy trinity of humanity, the earth, and destiny, right? Now he's talking about teleology and material dialectic. This is the material dialectic, whatever, it's the same as Marx's nonsense. It had a priesthood. It was even more influential in Victorian England than the theories of Charles Darwin or Karl Marx at one time. So this is atheists having non-religions, you see. His style was heavy, labored, and monotonous. He was boring, according to lots of Britannica says he was boring. Positive claims that theology and metaphysics are outdated, imperfect modes of knowledge. You see, they've got science. So positive knowledge is based on natural phenomena, so just material phenomenon. And their properties and relations as are verified by empirical sciences. So what can be measured by science? The weird thing is, how do you measure things like love or affection or understand? This was a very crazy view of seeing the world. Comte used the notion of a hypothetical framework for social organizations that would imitate the hierarchy and discipline found in the Roman Catholic Church. So they were going to copy what they could, plagiarize what they could from the church, but they were going to reject the church because they rejected God. So he believed in historical progress, just like Marx. From Saint-Simon, he saw the need for a basic and unifying social science that would explain existing social organizations and guide social planning for a better future. So he created sociology to create the new human utopia, and then they forced it into universities. It's the religion that will bring perfection. Understand, sociology is a deep threat because it is the anti-Christian atheistic religion which is going to create the future. Social engineering is sociology. Any thoughts, Sam, before I go on?
And someone just asked, you said his wife left him, but she also died. What happened? Because
No, different woman. His wife left him, and then he met another woman. She died.
So he was married more than once. The one woman left him. The second one died before she could leave him. So he probably murdered her because he was boring. And then he worshipped her
Yeah.
as a saint. Okay.
Yeah. So he had a law of 3 stages, which again could well come from the ideas of Joachim of Fiore, which influenced a whole host of thinkers negatively. Intellectual development moved historically from theology, gods and spirits, to metaphysics, to positivism. So metaphysics to him was a myth, right? To positivism. So his religion was the final stage of human intellectual development, distinguished by an awareness of the limitations of human knowledge relative to man's nature as a species in his varying social and his historical situations. But you see, man's knowledge was developing, so we were going to get super smart eventually because we'd solve everything. Maths was going to solve everything. And he said that absolute explanations must be abandoned. So he argued for subjective morality. There's no absolutes. Therefore, there's no absolute good. There's no absolute evil. See? So this opens the door to subjectivity, and suddenly you're on a very slippery slope. And he said, for the more sensible discovery of laws based on observable relations. And he argued for relativism. That's the danger. These are moral relativists. So he believed in the ultimate science of sociology and the complete secularization of Catholicism. He sought to strip Catholicism of its supernatural beliefs, retaining its tangible features and preserving its institutions and structure on a wider and stronger basis that only he felt positivism could provide. Now, don't forget, the Nazis also created a positive Christianity, literally named after this thing, positivity, positive Christianity, except the Catholics opposed the Nazis heavily. So the Nazis decided to utilize, of course, Lutheran Protestantism as the foundation for their religion that they created. So they needed these atheists always realized they need to steal from religion to implement their plans because their ideas have no substance, have no social cohesion. Well, they don't provide anyone anything that they can really hold on to bind society. So therefore they need to steal from the success of religion. So he envisioned a religion of humanity that superseded but incorporated Catholicism, as did Feuerbach, who also said that atheism is the new religion, right? And he said atheism is a religion, it's the new religion. Yeah, so he was somber, he was ungrateful, he was self-centered and egocentric. That's what Britannica says. That was nasty. John Stuart Mill came to recognize that Comte was closed-minded, ungrateful, and egotistical. And we're supposed to go, well, you know, the fact that his personality was completely insane doesn't mean that his ideas were bad or wrong. The fact that Hitler was a nasty human doesn't mean that his ideas were false. The fact that Luther was a nasty, disgusting, vile, evil, hateful, violent man doesn't mean his ideas were bad. I heard that recently somewhere. Your thoughts on that, Sam?
Well, obviously we see a pattern with all these leaders. They are sick, demented, psychologically disturbed, and yet they're influencing education because their ideas are permeating all levels of education and as well as the political socioeconomic structures of even America. So this ideology is creeping into America, which is why we have politicians who are trying behind the scenes to push for a socialist government. Isn't it tragic?
Yep. And what about the poor? We need to think about the poor, the welfare. You're seeing it today on the streets of Seattle. You're seeing it on the streets of DC, New York. The welfare of the poor, the welfare, the welfare, the welfare. You see, he was all about the poor. We need to do something for the poor. California, what, $14.5 billion later in 2 years, and they've got a problem that's 3 times, 4 times worse than it was when they started? Where did the money go? Right? So he devoted himself to the promotion and systemization of his ideas to improve society. And that's why people are fleeing blue states. Right? And then, of course, he spent time in an insane asylum, and many people today consider him mentally retarded.
Wow.
Right. So sociocracy, just something, okay. Sociocracy is a theory of governance that seeks to create psychologically safe environments and productive organizations. Doesn't that sound familiar? The way that we need safe spaces. It draws on the use of consent rather than voting. Yes, exactly, Andrew. So rather than voting, you have discussions and decision-making by people who have a shared goal or work process. That's called communism, okay? And coined in 1851 by French philosopher Comte as a parallel to sociology, the science that studies how people organize into social systems. He believed that a government led by sociologists would use scientific methods to meet the needs of all the people. Scientific socialism. American sociologist Lester Frank Ward in 1881 was an advocate of sociocracy to replace the political competition created by the majority vote system. So in other words, they wanted to create the vote by a system that, everyone sort of agrees. We all have this feeling that these things are the right things. So you might notice that these ideas actually are implemented in blue states in America and is implemented heavily in Europe and especially America today. Would you agree, Sam?
Sorry, yes, I was muted.
Participation trophies. Think about that. Participation trophies.
Well, guess what though? When I get 100,000 subscribers, I'll be getting a plaque. So should I reject it? No, I'm just kidding. Nothing to do with Islam. Go ahead.
Yeah, when are you getting 100,000? You're nearly there, right?
Yeah, I got a couple under. Don't worry, you're increasing too. You'll get there in about 20 years. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks, Sam. You make me feel so good. All right, so now you know where the whole participation trophy nonsense comes from. These are religious ideas. These are theological religious ideas. So now we're going to talk about ethical culture, which came up earlier. Does this symbol look familiar? The hippie symbol? Well, that's the ethical culture symbol,
Man,
which is based on Vitruvian man. Here, the perfection of man, right? So the question has been asked, what is the difference between humanism and ethical culture? It is obvious that ethical culture is a means to an end in humanism and might be considered a department of humanism. So it's just like a doctrine within humanism. All right. Oops. Felix Adler is a former member of the Free Religious Association, where you can make up your own religion. We're open to everybody. You see, there's no doctrine, there's no fixed doctrine. Conceived of ethical culture as a new religion that would strip away the unscientific dogma of regular Christianity, right? While retaining and elevating the ethical message at the heart of all religions, because all religions are equal. They all teach the same things. Like, for instance, Muslims believe exactly the same things as Christians, right, Sam?
Yeah, didn't you know that Jesus came to establish Sharia? It's identical Islam. It's you Jesuits that gave us the King James Bible.
Yep. So vital aspects of religion must not be allowed to fall by the wayside. So again, they're co-opting religion. So understand, as we read with Lenin, they're not looking to destroy, although they want to destroy religion, they want to co-opt religion. They infect it they take it over from the inside and they align it to their ideals slowly but surely. They burrow, they infect, they corrupt. They don't complete it. They realize they cannot simply just get rid of it. Even the communists, in their most rabid days against Christianity, they created their own services. They created an entire communist practice, which was modeled identically on Eastern Orthodoxy, so that there was very little difference between the two, because they realized that ceremony and activities and practices were critical, so that they did the very same thing. So it's not like you're going to tell the difference. They overlap many times. Yes, Sam?
So in other words, they would steal the system, if they're in the West, of Catholicism, or if they're like in Russia, the Orthodox system, liturgy, sacraments, in order to entice people to adopt their system, because they knew they couldn't just eradicate Christianity overnight. So they had to slowly imitate it until you buy into it and then destroy Christianity in your hearts and minds, just like Islam does, right?
Yep. So monotheistic religions are based on a metaphor of an authoritarian monarchy, they say, right? Whereas we need to be democratic. You see the word democratic. We need democracy. We all have to agree. We don't vote. We just all agree, right? And these relationships were now understood to be the ideal. So it was religious, as in the sense of it played a defining role in people's lives and addressed issues of concern. And that's how they redefined religion. That was a redefinition, which became ultimately a legal redefinition of the word religion. And Albert Camus, the welfare of the people in particular, has always been the alibi of tyrants, because old Comte was, what about the poor? We need to think of the welfare. All these migrants coming across the border, we need to think about their welfare. What about all these poor people? The welfare. You see, we need to give welfare. Do you understand? Welfare. This is simply just that. So, the Washington Times and Chris Hedges. So he wrote these couple of interesting books. He wrote a book that was originally called I Don't Believe in Atheists, The Dangerous Rise of the Secular Fundamentalist. It was then renamed, if I recall. So he wrote a book called American Fascists. And I think he renamed the book When Atheism Becomes Religion. So very interesting, excellent author. I've read some of his stuff in the past. The Washington Times and Chris Hedges, and atheists have no room to gloat. Pol Pot, Joseph Stalin, and Mao Zedong tallied tens of millions of kills between them in the 20th century alone. The absence of a religion is no more protection against fanatical rampages than blind faith. And these guys racked up far more deaths than religion has by hundreds of times. The New York Times best-selling author speaks out against those who attack religion to advance their own agenda. He accuses the new atheists led by Sham Harris, Richard Dawkins, and Christopher Hitchens, who's drunk most of the time when he's not dead, of promoting a belief system that is not, as they claim, based on reason and science, but on a simplified worldview of us versus them, Darwinian, in other words, very Darwinian, us versus them, and of intolerance and the false myth of human progress and moral superiority. It's based on Marxist historical dialectic or historical materialism. So yeah, he's basically saying these guys are Marxists in disguise. They are promoting Marxist ideas while claiming to be rational. Your thoughts, Sam?
So pretty much, Chris Hedges, I know him because of Hamza Yusuf. So he's very well informed and articulate, educated about the true atheist agenda of the new atheist. So they're pretty much Marxist socialists trying to eradicate Christianity primarily, and then religions as a whole. But these new atheists are behind this socialist, Marxist, fascist agenda. So, and he nailed it, huh, Chris Hedges?
Yeah. So you may not be a socialist, but by being an atheist, you automatically land in that segment of the political sphere. That's where you land. And therefore you are in the stream and flowing with and promoting socialist ideas. Do you understand? Well, I'm not a socialist. Well, so, right? Well, I like my nice car and my salary. You're a champagne socialist, but still, in other regards, you do not oppose socialism. You are in that political realm. Make sense, Sam?
Absolutely. Like I said, though, if you are in control and you have money and influence, you don't want anyone to touch what you have, but you're okay with everyone else being sacrificed for your agenda. That's the mindset.
Right. So last word about Saint Simon, right? So we got like 15 slides left after this. So Saint Simon also posited a three-stage process: religious, metaphysical, and finally scientific. Again, echoes of Joachim of Fiore, who created this whole three-stage system. Marx had one, Hegel had one. These are religious. This was a religious heresy, an idea that made its way into so many ideas. Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Mao, these fools, Luther, you name it, made its way into all of them. So society passed through these as knowledge became more assured. You see, as the gnosis, the knowledge, again, back to gnosis. Ultimately, ethics itself would become a science to be calculated and defined with precision and certainty. You pull out your calculator, you make the decision, if you die, I get your daughter and your house, and I can steal your money and your farm. Okay, I think we're doing that. In the process, banishing conflict to the history books. You see, because atheism was going to banish warfare. That's why we saw the worst wars in the history of mankind under socialism. For all these uncritical atheist socialism, by the way, for all his uncritical worship of science, however, Saint Simon recognized that dry rationality would not be enough for people. People needed emotions and feelings. So rather than crush Christianity, he tried to replace it within a different system. They realized atheism, which is just a lack of belief, don't you know, was boring, did not appeal to people, inspired nobody, because it is nihilistic and leads to nothing but death. And therefore, we need to borrow and co-opt Christianity. So he replaced deity with humanity, clergy with scientists, faith with scientific knowledge, and proposed, faith with knowledge, so gnosis, and proposed a social reorganization centered on a cult of Newton, Isaac Newton, thank you. So he could verge on the mad, but he was also genuinely original. His religion of scientific atheism forming the mold from which many others would take their shape. He was taken seriously by John Stuart Mill, Thomas Carlyle, Karl Marx, and Friedrich Engels. So in France, a number of disciples took on his ideas and formed a Saint Shamounian sect. They managed to remain together for 2 years, and of course, they just fell apart. Just thought that was interesting. So the greatest good, the commies, the political economy of progress, John Stuart Mill, and modern radicalism. So let's find out about this economist. The greatest happiness for the greatest number of people, utilitarianism. A lively discussion on the relation between happiness and morality emerged, and in this climate, an instrumental view on morality appeared, in which ethical codes are seen as a way of securing a happy life. Okay? Much of this enlightened thought is reflected in Jeremy Bentham's 1907 Introduction to Morals and Legislation. He argues that the moral quality of an action should be judged by its consequences on human happiness. In other words, it's the Jeffrey Epstein rule. Okay? Should I take advantage of that 14-year-old? Does it make me happy? Okay, then I should do it because that's moral. Make sense, Sam?
Sorry, I was muted. Nothing to do with Islam. That's all that matters to me, okay?
Yeah. So understand, there's no moral consequences. You do what feels right to you. You do what feels right. This feels right. So don't push your morals on me, but we will legislate our morals on you because we secularists are hypocrites. That's why. So they will legislate what feels right to them, but don't push your morals on them. So let's continue. The greatest happiness of the greatest number, the political economy of progress. Okay, here we go. This guy's got weird looking hair. So they speak here of the utilitarian commitment to the greatest happiness of the greatest number. Now, who decides that? Who makes that decision? So they're doing maths to determine if you live or die. Established a powerful, if somewhat vague, norm that continues to push public decision-making towards radicalism. This is an Oxford academic paper, right? Oxford Studies in the History of Economy. They state that basically this pushes towards radicalism, that's the outcome of this idea, this philosophy, this pointless socialist philosophy that underlies economic thinking here. The early history of the norm is traced to Adam Smith's mentor, Francis Hutcheson. Now, the credo generated little more than apologetics. It's just a bunch of hot air waffle, but no concrete ideas can come from it, because how do you quantify these moral ideas, right? So Mill remained reluctant to explicitly identify the greatest number with the working classes. So, of course, who benefits me? Well, the rich. But the utilitarian logic pushed him towards a materialist understanding of the credo. So these people are creating a gnosis. They realize they don't have perfect knowledge, so they create highly imperfect systems that eventually create destruction. So they claim it's science, but they're unscientific. Okay, George Bernard Shaw. I am God, and here is God. You're looking at him. Yeah, I'm God. This is me. I'm God. Okay? Not as yet completed. Oh, I'm not yet completely God, but I'm still advancing towards completion. I'm evolving. You see, it's evolution. Just in so much as I'm working for the purpose of the universe, because the universe wants to evolve. The greatest creation of the universe is man, and therefore I am becoming more perfect every day as I evolve. I'm working for the good of the whole world by implementing socialism, and the whole world, instead of merely looking after my own personal ends. I'm not thinking about me, I'm thinking of the whole world. And if we can just kill all of those capitalists, we can take all the money they have and share it amongst the poor, because that serves the good of the whole world. Make sense, Sam?
Yeah, as long as you don't touch his money, that's what he means. But go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so understand how this works. These ideas, these philosophies are all based on socialism. Socialism is the precursor to communism. It's the vehicle to communism. So communism really is the end state, the paradise. It's where you end up, where government fades away, where somehow man just, I don't know, he ends up in paradise. How? Who knows? How does he feed himself? Who knows? How does he stay warm at night? Who knows? Just socialism will take you there, but you just end up in a state where the state withers away and everyone's just nice to each other. So the full greatest good philosophy is known as utilitarianism, reforming the world in the interest of human well-being. Human well-being, or being born well, right? This idea we would know as eugenics, oddly enough. So human wellness, right? Being a well human, being born well, this is known as eugenics. And if you're not fit, you get tossed out. So these are always mixed in there very subtly. There's little ways that they put in these toxic ideas. In Marxist socialism, workers contribute as much as they can to the greater good, and they all share equally in that good. That's a lovely theory. The use of these services is unequal. Everyone is equally responsible for contributing to them based on their ability or level of income. So in other words, this is where you pay more taxes, but you get as much out as the poor guy that's stealing your money. So it's the welfare system. It's not based on merit. It's not based on contribution. It's simply based on what they can take from you, and you stealing from the rich to give to the poor. right? So workers do what they can to contribute and take only what they need in return, except you're only going to get a little bit out. So why put in work? So basically, this causes people to become lazy and not to contribute. We see this today in the world. Stalin says we stand for the withering away of the state. At the same time, we stand for the strengthening of the strongest state power that has ever existed. So with socialism, the state will eventually wither away, but you needed an intellectual elite, this elite controlling the government, controlling the elite above the people to guide the state to the end state of communism. So we must have the world's strongest state to protect us from outside enemies and to protect us from internal enemies, enemies of the state. And is this contradictory, he asks? Yes, it is contradictory, but this contradiction fully reflects Marx's dialectics. You see, it is incoherent trash. It is utterly illogical. It goes against non-contradictory logic. It is complete bogus nonsense. Your thoughts, Sam?
So basically, if you read between the lines, states need to be vanquished, but there has to be a state power. In other words, this is the one world government, one world leader, so that you don't have states, you have one state and one supreme leader. So you see how this is going to point to the Antichrist of the New Testament. See that, Lloyd?
Yep.
I'm not as stupid as I look, but go ahead.
No, you're not. Yeah. So this goes against, we'll skip Marx's quote there, the reign of terror, back to the French Revolution. A desire to tackle social injustice, to do good. That was the whole point of the French Revolution. We're bringing socialism to the world, a new system to replace the existing corrupt system, and we just going to have to murder everybody to do that. Essentially, a restatement of the problem of evil as dealt with by the Gnostics. You see, the old system is evil. We're going to do better. Like, for instance, when I talk about, I'm going to get my numbers wrong here, so don't quote me. But when I do my talk on the Spanish Inquisition, we're going to see how over a period of, 400, 500 years, right, within the Spanish Inquisition, something like 50 witches were killed. And then, of course, atheists, Muslims, and Protestants lose their minds, and they go like, oh my God, the Catholics killed 9 million witches. Now, educated people actually say that. Highly educated people with Nobel Prizes actually say stupid things like that. They go like, oh my God, they killed millions of people, right? The Catholic Church, look at all these witches they killed. In just a 1 year or 2 year period, right, during the 17th century, Protestants murdered 900 witches in one town, one small town, 900. So they murdered 900 witches in 2 years, whereas the Spanish Inquisition killed like 50 women over a period of like 400 years. And everyone goes like, but Catholicism is evil and Protestantism, we're the good guys, we're going to fix it. And we just got to kill these 900 witches first. So understand, this is hypocrisy on a massive scale. These people have, and they will hide. Just like in X-Files, they say their mistakes are erased, their mistakes are hidden, just by the same token. So these are not the good guys. These are the bad guys. They simply lie about their mistakes. Your thoughts, Sam, before I go on?
Yeah, I guess we got some clown. I don't know. I don't see his comments in the comment section, but what I see is here. It says, you yourself said atheists believe that moral ethics is relative. Socialists don't think their ethics, religion is relative. Atheism not equals socialism. You see, this guy's kind of mentally challenged. But see, I don't see it on the comment section, so I don't know how this coward is.
Was deleted. Yeah, I think this could be the same guy from this afternoon because he's saying the same things.
Well, so he's the
It
same.
could well be
Corrected.
Could well be the same guy that is making the same claims. Because look, they have to deny. They come from the perfect religion, the religion of peace, the religion of mathematical perfection. So the French Revolution of 1789 is born from a desire to create a socialist society. The French Revolution was look, we all know, for instance, for this twit who's probably listening, need to understand this. The French Revolution was an atheistic revolution. It was also a socialist revolution. Those were all atheists. The French philosophers, the encyclopedistes, right? These encyclopedistes, whatever, the encyclopedists, the philosophers, they were all atheists. The French Revolution banned Christianity. Christians were murdered. And if you would not convert to atheism, it was atheism or death, off with their head, right? So the atheists were murdering anyone who wouldn't become an atheist because atheism is a religion of peace. But also you were a socialist. Understand? So the two are connected. The two are very intimately connected. And atheists have to lie because their history is one of murder, genocide, irrationality, cultism, occultism, and gnosis. Yes, Sam?
No, and what's ironic, he says socialists don't believe their morality is relative. Well, if it's anchored in moral objectivity, moral absolutes, what's the source of that moral absolutes? Unless you're going to say that you're a Christian. But then if you're a Christian, then your socialism contradicts the Bible. So you bury yourself either way. So stop barking, buddy. Go back to your vomit.
Yeah.
Continue.
So from a socialist perspective, of course, the French Revolution was a failure. It was an utter failure. It was a massive genocide, huge destruction, and it caused social chaos. France was a mess. And of course, what was the excuse? That wasn't real socialism. We got to try it again. It created even more radicalization from a sense that the revolution had been thwarted. You see, because now they started telling stories that the revolution would have worked, but Sam, the CIA, came in and assassinated their leaders, undermined it, and the CIA stopped the French Revolution from happening, Sam.
You Jesuits,
plus the Jews, the Jesuits, the Jews, and MI6, Sam.
Exactly.
So it wasn't that Honduras and it wasn't that Venezuela and all these countries failed. The CIA did it, Sam. The French Revolution was the CIA.
And you Jesuits too. Don't forget the Jesuits. Don't hide that fact, you Jesuit.
Yeah. No. So in other words, they are unable to look at how stupid, how illogical, how immoral, how evil, and completely dumb their ideas are. They have to blame someone else. So the revolution needed now to go further to create social and economic equality, because you see, they went backwards, they went the wrong direction. So they needed to push harder, you see, to finally get there, because the resistance was too bad. No, you were running in the wrong direction. You went over a cliff. You went completely the wrong way. But yeah, they're blind and unable to see their failures. And now let's look at this guy, Zinoviev. At the commencement of the 5-year Red Terror period of political repression and mass killings, Zinoviev said, "To overcome our enemies, we must have our own socialist militarism. We must carry along with us 90 million out of the 100 million of Soviet Russia's population. As for the rest, we have nothing to say to them. They must be annihilated." Now, this is a socialist, and atheism was the official religion of the Soviet Empire. Yeah, so we don't like these 10 million. Sam.
Wow, man. So he's upfront about it. Annihilate the 10 million that they think are insignificant, but obviously he's not part of the 10 million. And that's true. All these guys that you show, they look demented and sick and demonized. What's the pattern here?
It's the same. Like if you look at Carl Jung, you look at Luther, you look at Darwin, you look at Marx, all of them had sores, boils, tummy problems, constipation, serious issues. I mean, all of them they were violent, they were aggressive. And these are things that when you look at the histories on them, they'll say, well, Charles Darwin was an amazing man. He collected all these butterflies and he pinned them to the board. He was such a gentle, sweet. Charles Darwin was taking a hammer and killing all the birds and animals that he could find for fun. Charles Darwin was running around murdering animals with his bare hands, throwing rocks at them, killing rabbits, killing animals he could find by throwing rocks at them, killing them, shooting everything he could. But somehow they forget to mention this man was a psychopathic mass-scale animal murderer.
Scum of the earth, man. Scum.
So yeah, so understand, Soviet, right? Communist, socialist, atheist. Very simple. A workers' revolution. I'm going to skip over this. These were the partisans. This was the original. This was the French Revolution bourgeoisie. Right? Sorry, the proletariat. This was the French Revolution proletariat. Right? These guys, the people. Right? They were the farmers, and they were drafted. They became the shock troops of the French Revolution socialism army. Right? So their most fundamental political ideas were social equality, economic equality, and democracy. Isn't that what the communists are wanting today in America? The Socialist Democrat Party in America today wants social equality, economic equality, and popular democracy. Isn't that interesting? Right? And they campaigned for a more democratic constitution, price controls, and harsh laws against political enemies. Like maybe they would, I don't know, start a whole bunch of indictments against the former president because they don't want him to run in the election. Who knows? And economic legislation to assist the needy, welfare. All of these ideas we are seeing playing out today. They have resurged. They've come back. Gnosticism, Marxism are stronger today than they've ever been in history. You could think of it that way. Gnosticism is more prevalent today than it ever has been in history. These ideas are resurging because Christians have been weak. Christians have been tolerant. The police and the courts received thousands of denunciations of traitors. If you see something, say something. If someone tweets, report them to the British cops. We'll send the police around. And supposed conspirators who were coerced to prosecute or be denounced themselves. In other words, the justice system had to prosecute, or the prosecutors were themselves denounced and then mobbed, vilified, cancelled, and prosecuted. Understand? So this idea is an old idea. It's being implemented today. And yeah, let's continue. The socialist conspiracy is not a theory. And now we're going to talk about Gracchus Babeuf, not his real name. Okay, Babeuf. So Francois Noël Caius Gracchus Babeuf, he took a Roman name. So Caius Gracchus was a Roman politician and a land reform and land redistribution advocate. He was the architect of what he called the conspiracy of equals, because all men are equal. In Animal Farm, all animals are equal, except some are more equal than others. You see, everyone's equal. That's socialism. Any thoughts from you, Sam, before I go on?
It's interesting. Andrew Martin mentioned to read Animal Farm, and you mentioned it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly where the idea comes from. Michelle says the Darwin biographies I read make him out to be practically a saint, and it's all lies. Exactly. The man was mentally unwell. The man was physically unwell. His whole family was sick. His entire family was involved in eugenics. They all sat on eugenics boards. They promoted eugenics. Darwin created eugenics. They try to claim his cousin, Francis Galton, created eugenics, took Darwin's ideas and corrupted them. No. He just created the name eugenics. But the idea is Darwin's idea. He just gave a name to Darwin's ideas. Darwin's family were all eugenicists. Animal Farm, yeah, I read it at school, believe it or not. Right. Wanted a second revolution to create a recognizable proto-socialist republic, because the French Revolution had been thwarted by the CIA. The CIA had come in and prevented the glorious revolution from succeeding, so they needed to have a second revolution, kill even more people this time, kill the right people, killed all the wrong people last time. He advocated for the poor. Oh my God, the welfare state again. He called for revolt, social democracy. That's what that's what those women on The View want. There's 5 women on The View, right? The Animal Farm View, that's what they want. And the abolition of private property to create social equality. If no one has property, we're all equally destitute, we're all equally poor, therefore we have equality. Do you understand? It's equality through theft. Now, here's the question. Who owns that property that they took? The state.
Yeah.
Well, who's the state? The great leader. Right, Sam?
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. As long as they have the power and control, it doesn't matter about you. You need to sacrifice everything. Whereas they take everything and they sacrifice nothing. They sacrifice you. That was the point.
Yeah. So they benefit. So let me see how many slides I have left. So yeah, in slide 52, I have 10 more slides left, just so we know. So although the terms anarchist and communist did not exist in Babeuf's time, both were used by later scholars to describe his ideas, anarchist and communist. Communism was first used in English by Goodwin Bombi in a conversation with people he described as the disciples of Babeuf. He has been called the first revolutionary communist. Yeah, make everyone equally poor. Exactly. Shortages will be equally distributed amongst the poor. That's communism. Right. So Babeuf wrote, society must be made. And what he means is forced with violence to operate in such a way that it eradicates once and for all the desire of a man to become richer, wiser, or more powerful than others. This is the story of Procrustes' bed. Procrustes had the perfect bed. It's a Greek story. It goes way back, thousands of years. Procrustes had the perfect bed, and visitors would come by and he would invite them to sleep on his bed. But of course, some visitors, their legs would stretch over the bed. And what he had to do was he had to chop off their feet or chop them off at the knees to make them fit the perfect bed, because the visitors weren't perfect. Wow. Sometimes they were too short, so he had to stretch them to make them fit the bed. And sometimes doing so, he would tear their legs off, unfortunately, because the bed was perfect, you see. And therefore, makes sense, Sam?
Wow, that's actually a Greek story?
Yes.
Wow. These Greeks,
the bed really of Procrustes.
Some smart and sick, demented minds. But hey, you Greeks, that's your problem.
Bed of Procrustes. Yeah. So that's something to look up, that story. But this explains the horror of socialism already. So it's violence and torture visited on people for an idea which will never match the real world, right? In fact, there's a number of stories about this. Like there's one story where everyone has to be equally good looking, right? The same level. No one can be specially good looking. No one can be specially attractive or tall. So what happens is anyone who's particularly good looking is forced to wear a mask or have his nose cut off or both ears removed because, you know, or they have to shorten you or make you hunch or something so that everyone's the same height, everyone's the same weight, everyone looks the same.
Wow.
So there's stories like that as well.
You can never be as good looking as me, Lloyd, so that's going to be a problem, but go ahead.
Okay. But I'm just gonna turn my camera off now. Okay.
Nothing to do with Islam.
So, in the Manifesto of the Equals, Babeuf wrote, "The French Revolution was nothing but a precursor of another revolution, one that will be bigger, more solemn, and which will be the last." So the attempts of the governing directory, so that was the French government at the time called the Directory, to deal with the economic crisis of the day gave Babeuf historical importance. And this is here, the conspiracy for equality. So what you've got is, this is him. This is sort of, they were talking about, this was their great Greek pagan renaissance, right? Based on Greek ideals, right? And of course, this was Babeuf and his conspiracy to stab it in the back. And then, of course, he was stopped, right? So he's among the first to advocate socialism as a political institution for solving the problems of society. But of course, we know it was a political religion. We know it was religious, right? Designed to replace religion. He's credited with applying the word terrorists to the Jacobins of 1793. And then he called for the establishment of a republic of equals and his theories, which formed the basis for 19th century socialism and communism. So he develops these theories, and of course, the man was a conspiracy theorist. He attracts a following of former Jacobins. They open a club at the Pantheon. The government closes the club and plans to take action against the group because they were becoming a political menace. They were political terrorists. So he founded a secret society, a secret directory of public safety to plan a second French Revolution. See, so he calls it a directory of public safety. That's like saying the directory of home safety from fire, which is designed to burn down homes in Hawaii, for argument's sake. Okay. So he's betrayed by the informant, George Gressel, and he's condemned to death and executed. But he literally created a secret society and he literally planned a conspiracy to overthrow the government. He was training an army, arming people to eventually overthrow the government. So his tactical strategies provided a model for left-wing movements of the 19th century as the modus operandi, the means to the end of socialist society. So he taught them, form a secret underground, arm them, train them, right? Indoctrinate them, operate in silence as a secret society, and then overthrow the government by means of revolution. So he revered as a hero by the 19th and 21st century revolutionaries because of his advocacy of communism and his conviction that a small secret elite could overthrow a government by illegal, violent, conspiratorial means to bring socialism. This guy was literally conspiring. So the conspiracy theory is true because this is the model that socialists follow today. Your thoughts, Sam, before I go on?
No, so basically, this man starts a secret society, pretending to be something in the public, but behind the scenes, planning a coup. So that's what happened with this guy. So there you go, guys. You're going to have this being carried out until the Lord returns. So this same ideology is still in place, and it's permeating America. They're doing it now in America, slowly but surely.
Yeah. So this book is Development of Socialism from Utopia to Science. So socialism was developed as a utopian idea, a perfect idea, the perfect religion. But then they said, hold on, wait, we need to call it a science. So this is the book, Development of Socialism from Utopia to Science, and it's written by Friedrich Engels, who's the friend and financier of Karl Marx, the inventor of Marxism. Psycho-individuals, human life. Yeah, exactly. So why utopian socialism? Advocates of socialism wanted to create utopias in the form of model villages, model society, perfect societies, you see, like ants. They all failed, but later socialists kept taking up these failed ideas. Marx and Engels coined the term utopian socialists in their 1848 work, The Communist Manifesto, which, remember, was originally called the Communist Catechism of Faith. Right? Then they changed the name because it sounded too religious, too Catholic, to attack this group. So they called them utopian socialists. But then, after they discredited these utopian socialists, they go and write their own book called Utopian Socialism. So they were hypocrites. Engels then published his best-selling Development of Socialism from Utopia to Science in Paris in 1880, after in 1848 discrediting these other groups for being utopian, as socialism, utopian socialism and scientific socialism, because he's a hypocrite. Note that Islam is also a science of society. Understand? There's certain parallels here. Now, Robert Owen is a British socialist. He created model villages in Britain, and his followers created them in the United States, these model villages. Right? He was a firm advocate of Enlightenment ideas, again, more atheist, socialist ideas. And he was very interested in philosophy, morality, and the natural goodness of man, because you know what? Nature is pure, and the soul is pure because we are godlike because of Gnosticism, so therefore pure. His idea is if you put people in a bad situation, then you produce bad people. But if you put people in a good situation, you produce good people. So nurture over nature. So all you need to do is give them a hug, tell them they're sweet, give them a participation trophy, and you'll create perfect people. Now you get crappy psychology as well, based on this false morality and false religion. The environment in which people were brought up was important. What he saw around them was terrible working conditions. So he created moral villages to create good people who would work together harmoniously in a cooperative way. We saw this during the Summer of Love in Chaz or Chop in Seattle. Remember that, Sam?
Nothing to do with Islam, though.
Yes. So he became known as the father of British socialism. So you might remember Chaz or Chop, right? This was where they took over downtown Seattle, several blocks of it, and they created the perfect commune. And of course, they ended up killing each other, shooting each other to death, and it turned into rapes and other violence. Yeah.
Exactly, in Seattle, of all places. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the socialist utopia called New Harmony, Indiana, 1825, that they wanted to create. Houses surrounded by perfect, beautiful green, with your work not far from your house, and the perfect family setup. That's what they believed that they could achieve in their socialist utopia. Right? So Owen had visions of a real self-sufficient cooperative founded on these values. So he buys 30,000 acres of land in Indiana. He calls it New Harmony to create a cooperative workers' utopia. The community fragmented, stagnated, and fell apart. He founded some successful socialist and cooperative groups, right? But they eventually also all just fell apart. Now, Etienne Cabet, pedestrians walk on the right. This guy, another weirdo. So let's look at his idea of how we're going to implement socialism, how we're going to perfect people using socialism and atheism. So he's born in 1788, dies in 1856 in St. Louis. Okay, he's a French socialist. And he founds a communal settlement in Illinois. He has a career as a teacher, a lawyer, a revolutionist, and political exile. He publishes a novel called Voyage en Icarie, The Voyage of Icarus, about his theories on the ideal community. So to put his ideas into practice, he and 1,500 people land in New Orleans in 1848 and 1849. So he buys the old Mormon settlement, which had 20,000 people, and he takes 280 settlers because a whole bunch of these people decided not to go with him. They had to start Icaria. The settlement was at best a compromise, for he was unable to put many of his ideas into practice. So already the ideas were unworkable. The population never grew above 1,800, and in 1856, they argued, dissension arose, and he left with 180 followers for St. Louis, where he soon died. His colonies, were established all over the place, right? But they dissolved by 1895. So let's read a little bit about his intentions and what happened. So he puts these ideas and experiences into this book, this novel. And he says here, he writes to my dear brother, how heartbroken I feel when I think of France and I see the happiness enjoyed by the people of Icaria, right? Because he's writing about how they found perfection. They created a perfect utopia at this place. Concerning food, this first need of man, everything in our country is abandoned to chance and corrupt abuses. But here, in my little place, everything is regulated according to the most enlightened reason and the most generous care. Everything concerning food has been regulated by the law. It is the law which accepts or rejects every type of nourishment. A committee of scientists set up by national representatives with the aid of citizens who come to an agreement, right? The proper democracy has made a list of all known foods indicating which are acceptable, which are not acceptable, which are good, and which are not allowed. And they've indicated the most suitable ways of preparing each food. So you have a fixed set of recipes you don't deviate from. And each family has the cookery guide, so they don't deviate from the perfect food and meals. And of course, once the list of foods has been agreed upon, we then decided to have agricultural workers gathered in Republican storehouses, and we distributed using our new streetcars to each family with an equal share to everybody. Everybody gets equal food. At every meal, they begin with a toast to the glory of the good Icar, benefactor of the workers, benefactor of the families, benefactor of the citizens. Oh, yeah. And these meals, so what they do is they also have a common meal, right? So in
Wow.
other words, yeah, so what happens is up to 2,000 people meet in a common hall because you don't cook at home. You have to get to know your people and socialize. So you have a common meal like once a day or whatever it is, right? And these common meals present a great economy compared with separate meals. And therefore, we can give better food if everybody just has a communist meal. And it allows workers to fraternize and to simplify the housework for the women, as with food, so with the law, which regulates clothes. A committee has consulted everyone, has examined the clothes worn in every country, scientifically, of course, has made a list of shapes and colors, and every family has a book of them, and indicated which should be adopted and what clothes must be avoided, and has classified them according to their necessity, and everything that was extravagant or tasteless has been banned. This was their vision of the perfect world. The Chinese implemented something like this with, the Chinese uniform. Your thoughts on this so far, Sam? This is atheist utopia, by the way.
Now, what
Yeah?
it's obvious if you pay attention, they are stealing ideas from the Old Testament, because if you notice here, you have a community. This community will be told what to eat, what not to eat, what's good food, what's harmful food. And then they will have a communal meal. They will come together and share a meal. Well, that's Old Testament, Deuteronomy 14, Leviticus 11. In fact, even in the Old Testament, God even tells the Israelites how to even sew clothes and what kind of fabric to use. And then you have in the New Testament the communal meal of the Eucharist, the Lord's Supper. So here you have the Christian worldview being hijacked, perverted, turned upside down to promote the satanic atheist socialist agenda. For a minute, I thought you were reading the Old Testament, that certain foods are beneficial. But go ahead. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so you can see what these guys are doing. I mean, I think it's very, very easy to see where they stand. So yeah, like I said, they're stealing from religion, right? And they're trying to adopt these ideas, but they are pushing a man-made religion of their own. So everyone possesses the same clothes. There is no room for envy or pride. Each of them changes clothes frequently. Not only are the two sexes dressed differently, but each changes clothes frequently according to age and condition. The condition of celibacy or marriage or widowhood, as well as the various professions. So everything you do is indicated by your clothes. Your clothes says who exactly you are and what you do and all that. The clothes are manufactured in enormous quantities and are deposited in immense storehouses where everyone is always sure to find immediately all that they need and is due to them according to the law. So you just go to the storehouse, go find the right clothes, a bowl of rice for everyone, a chicken in every pot, and a car in every garage. Yeah, but except for free. You just go there, grab the one you like, grab the one that fits you, grab the right one, don't grab the wrong one. And he says, I've talked to you of women, how you would love these Icarians if you saw how they surround women with attention, respect, and homage, right? How they concentrate all the thoughts and happiness upon women. So anyway, that's his little utopia. Just thought you guys would find that interesting. This is what they quite literally wanted to achieve. Yeah. So now let's have a look at humanist Canada with profound respect for humanity. Yeah, sorry?
Canada? All right, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, America's hat. We need to talk about that for a little moment. Now, this is the Humanist Association of Canada. You would think they're harmless, but it says here that our philosophy is based upon a profound respect for human dignity and the conviction that we're all ultimately accountable to ourselves and to society. Our worldview is deity-free, without the reliance upon a belief in the supernatural. We believe that reason and science are the best ways to understand the world. Compassion should be the basis for how we act towards others. A fair and equal society, ceremonies. So in other words, they want to live in a fair and equal society and with ceremonies and educational services, and they want to proselytize by bringing their religion to communities and raise awareness on the national stage. So they're proselytizing and they are political. Understand that, all right? Now, again, we've covered this in the past. Look at these seven fundamental tenets. We must strive to work with compassion, with empathy, with reason. We must struggle for justice, social justice. And of course, goodness and righteousness must prevail over laws and institutions, because laws can be unjust. Okay, institutions can be racist, systematically racist. We need to strive for justice. Our beliefs must conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. We must have a solid scientific understanding of the world, and we must apply science to everything, which conforms with all of these socialists and atheists we've just spoken about. And we must never distort scientific facts to fit our beliefs. We must act with compassion, with justice, and justice must always prevail over the written or spoken word, and that would be the law. Justice, our idea of justice, must always prevail, because you see, our feelings of what is justice must prevail over the unjust world. And notice, our body is inviolable, subject to one's will alone. Unless you have a baby, then you can kill it. So guys, we've had this before, but for those who don't know, whose manifesto is this? These seven fundamental tenets belong to which organization? They align perfectly with those of the humanist organization and the socialists we've seen before. Would you agree, Sam?
Yes, and you said this is Canada?
No. The previous slide. This is the Humanist Association of Canada. This is a different organization with their tenets, which align with humanism, right? This is an atheistic organization as well, so they claim, right? Anyone knows who this organization is?
No, for a minute you scared me. I thought they're implementing in Canada and they're upfront about it.
Okay. So these seven fundamental tenets, for some reason I don't have it, but
they're saying it here, right here in the thing. Satanic Bible?
So this one, these seven fundamental tenets belong to...
Yeah, as he just said.
These seven fundamental tenets belong to the Satanic Temple.
Yep, said it.
Right? So if you look for this seven...
Wow. And no,
fundamental tenets.
Socialism has nothing to do with Satanism, atheism.
So let's have a look here. The seven fundamental tenets. These are the seven fundamental tenets of the Satanic Temple.
Wow. Nothing to do with Satanism, though. You're just making it up, you Jesuit.
You see, so Satanism and socialism align perfectly. Humanism aligns perfectly with the Satanist understanding of the world. They are... So this is humanist Satanism, as we've spoken about before. Humanist Satanism. Let me just check that we're nearly done, I believe. We should nearly be done. I just
want to reiterate, I said that at the beginning, that if you actually understand what they're saying, this is Satanism, because what is Satan? People think Satanism is worshiping Satan. No. Satanism, if you go to Genesis 3, is worshiping self, yourself, making your will absolute, doing what you want because you're your own God, and you carry out your own desires, not God's will.
Yeah, remember, Satan technically is the opposer, someone that opposes God.
Yep.
You have Lucifer, maybe that's a separate character, but being satanic is to oppose God. And this is to oppose God and impose your will. Anton LaVey's form of Satanism is atheistic. So Anton LaVey, everyone knows him as an atheist and Satanist of the 20th century, but he was a Satanist who was atheistic. And he described it as a carnal religion, carnal meaning sexual. They believe that all gods are fictitious and that ultimate importance is found in the self and in pursuing self-interests. Satan is not a deity, but a metaphor, the ultimate adversary of irrationality and religious beliefs. We've just seen these people's ideas of pie in the sky utopian nonsense, but they believe they are ultimately rational, right? Anarchy, correct. It's destruction. It's destruction of the natural order. It's designed to destroy. They want to see the world burn. Now they say you can have secular symbolism, you can have ritual and pageantry, because that's what they think Christianity is. It's like a circus show, right? It's very effective, something that is part of the nature of the human animal. That's Darwinian, the human animal, right? And he says here, this is the Lucian Greaves of the Satanic Temple. Let's actually just find this guy, Lucian Greaves. Let's actually just bring up this dude, may as well. But you can see who he is. Lucian Greaves is this guy. This is Lucian Greaves here.
Another weird looking dude. What's up with all these guys, man? All these guys that look psychotic. What's up with this?
Yeah, look at that. Isn't this just normal?
What the hell? Every one of these guys looks like a nut job, some misfit.
Yeah,
What's up?
understand. They all look a little messed up, don't they?
What's
You
up with
see?
this dude?
Don't they all look a little strange, right?
Yeah.
So he's the spokesman for the Satanic Temple, and he says it's not that we're just looking for disorder, chaos, and to undermine Western civilization. He says it right there. That's what they want to do. We're trying to endorse for enlightenment values. Hold on. The Satanists want to bring enlightenment values because those are satanic values. We're bringing reason and respect for science into bettering the human condition, just like Comte wanted to do, just like Saint-Simon wanted to do, just like Marx wanted to do, just like Darwin wanted to do, just like the Nazis wanted to do. They all want to improve the human condition, bring reason, respect science, and fighting for enlightenment values. You understand? The enlightenment values in atheism and socialism are all satanic movements. Your thoughts, Sam, before I go on? I've got like 2 more slides to go.
Yeah, this guy just said that guy looked like the Dajjal of Islam because he's one-eyed.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what the guy reminds me of the blind mufti some time ago. Yep, there you go. Oh boy.
So, yeah. So, humanism, the new religion. So, in an article titled The Religion of Democracy, Part 2, Rudolf Dreikurs argues that humanism should be thought of as religious because of the form and content. The new religion will probably be humanistic. It will be concerned with man and not with God. You know, we've seen now that all of these man-concerned religions are satanic. They're literally satanic. Now, is he even human? Yeah, you got to wonder. He sold his soul. I mean, what else can you say? I mean, look. I mean, for instance, I did these talks, as I've said before, with Nuria Khan, and she claims to be a humanist because she believes in science, right? But humanism, the founders of humanism, were adamant that humanism is religious. It is a religion, right? It replaces Christianity, but it is a religion. So this new religion will have new principles, new rituals, and new symbols. American Humanist Association vice president and Austrian psychiatrist and educator, who developed psychologist Alfred Adler's system of individual psychology that we saw earlier, the guy with the ethical culture, and so they developed the system, and he took that system and developed his own, basically. And of course, statements like the above are common from atheist humanists who see their faith as a new religion, stripping out the divine and replaced by man in the image of man. That's what Marx came with. Marxism was man in the image of man, the perfection of man. Just like in Nazism, you have the Übermensch, the perfection of man, man in the image of man, man being the prime creation of the universe, the God of the universe. This is little different to the view of Marx and even aligns with literal satanic organizational claims.
Absolutely.
So now my last slide. Yeah, last 2 slides. Any thoughts, Sam, before I go on?
No, phenomenal. Doing great, man. Just it's clear as day now. Socialism, fascism, Marxism, atheism, they're all rooted in Satanism. Don't let them deceive you. May God open the eyes of the atheists to come to the truth.
A lot of atheists are Satanists. I mean, we discussed Aaron Ra, right? We discussed him in the previous talk on right? And of course, we know that in my previous talk, we did Aaron Ra on atheism, and we showed that he is a Satanist. He came out, he admitted he was an atheist, but also a Satanist atheist, right? So however you square that circle, right? So Aristotle will make famous, right, that we are political animals. That's Aristotle. So human beings are political animals, and political society is not so much the final accomplishment of mankind's long journey, but the condition of possibility for human life, right? So in other words, political ends is not the final end. Political society, a society ordered by a proper political system, allows human life to flourish. So remember, that's when you talk about Sham Harris is always talking about human flourishing is the greatest good. Well, for that, you need political control. There's the silent part he's not saying, you see, the political control to have the human flourishing. And they need the right political system, which is Marxism, which is satanic. So the importance of technical skills as the key condition for human progress, that's also Aristotelian. So understand, while Thomas Aquinas did absorb a lot of the truth that Aristotle found from his dialectic, his logic, they had to strip out all of the stuff that was clearly evil, clearly misguided.
Yep.
Yes, Sam, you wanted to say?
No, I said yes. In fact, real quickly, because you only have one more slide after this, so there's no rush. David Wood
Yeah.
told me, just to let you know about Thomas Aquinas. David Wood studied philosophy at Fordham University. He's got his degree from there, and he said that the professor, who was an atheist, praised Thomas Aquinas. He goes, obviously, God using Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas saved the West from becoming Islamicized because the Muslims were pretty much taking over the West, and they were influencing philosophy and medicine. So what Thomas Aquinas did was he took Aristotelian logic and philosophy and used it against the Muslims to defend the Christian worldview, because the Muslims were using Aristotelian logic to try to refute the Trinity. So just to confirm what you're saying, Thomas Aquinas was forced to take Aristotelian logic, Greek philosophy, Christianize it to bury the Muslims' misuse of it to attack the Trinity. And God, through Thomas, using Thomas, saved the West from being swallowed up by Islam. So there you go.
Right. Anything else, Sam? So
That was it. Was this your last slide?
Yeah.
You have one more?
Yeah, second last slide. Yeah, we're nearly done. I mean, just for some reason my YouTube stream always falls behind because I also play it just
What you
on
do is
in case.
refresh your stream.
Yeah, I do. So no, look, Thomas Aquinas. I have nearly finished my talk on Thomas Aquinas. It's fairly lengthy, but I've got a very detailed talk on scholasticism, Thomas Aquinas, and Aristotle. Basically, it's a talk on logic. Okay, what is logic? What is sophistry? What is logic? How do we find the truth? What is the truth? How do we find the truth? And what is the process for determining what is true? How can we be sure that what we know is true, right? How do we know that this knowledge is valid and that our conclusions are true? And that is the thing that Thomas Aquinas gave us, right? And of course, Martin Luther spent his days calling reason the whore of Satan. Reason is the bride of Satan. Reason is the sin against God. Reason is a crime. But of course, he was a great thinker, don't forget. And this is something we must talk about. And you will notice that modern thinking, modern science, modern scientific thinking literally comes from Thomas Aquinas. And so I have a nearly finished presentation on that. But on top of that, with that presentation, I also talk in depth about how Thomas Aquinas' ideas shaped Western thinking, where we don't even realize that it did, but also how exegesis happens, how you use the scholastic method to do exegesis, how it takes into account all of the variables, all the facts, and you come to a conclusion that you can trust, as opposed to, I read the Bible, the Holy Spirit spoke to me, the voices in my head said. Basically, he bypasses that and he goes through a very rigorous, detailed method of considering, and he iterates multiple times through this till you find. And Martin Luther was adamant that this is evil, this is satanic, this is wrong. You cannot use reason. And that is the difference between the Protestant way of thinking, which people don't even realize, and the Catholic way of thinking. It's a very rigorous process against, I read the Bible and it said you're wrong. So your thoughts, Sam, before I go on?
No, so far, phenomenal stuff, brother.
Yeah, so I'll be talking about that. That's something I'm nearly finished with. So basically, exegesis, how that works. And you're going to be shocked to see the difference in thinking, how Protestant thinking relies heavily on rhetoric. It's like, the Bible spoke to me after I read it, and the Lord spoke to my ear, and he said, right?
Can I get anything, man?
Right.
Come on.
And Sam, his car burned down, and his wife died, and his dog bit his ankle and ran away. But he didn't give up in the faith in the Lord. Right? So basically, you're going to see.
Come on, bro.
Yeah. So what you're going to get is you're going to see there's a difference between the way that Protestant ideas work heavily on rhetoric and how the Catholic way of thinking is extremely rational, combining faith with logic and reason, whereas the other side very much rejects reason. So you're going to see this, and that's something I want to bring clear as well when I get to that discussion on logic, because I think it's going to be very interesting to see the difference in how you can justify your exegesis versus, well, the Holy Spirit told me so, go away. Okay, so let me continue here. Yeah. Right. So according to Diogenes Laertius, he was the first to maintain that on any matter there are two theses, two statements, or perhaps two arguments called logoi that are opposed to one another. Right? Now understand that, for instance, religion came long before atheism. right? Just like Catholicism did, unfortunately, historically come long before Protestantism. So atheism stands in opposition to the original thought of religion. Atheism would not exist if there were no theism. Atheism is a contrary position to something that exists, just like Protestantism would not exist unless there were Catholicism first. So, according to Aristotle, he claimed to make the weaker or inferior logos stronger or superior, which is rhetoric. In other words, how do you take a bad argument, a bad position, and using rhetoric, using words, twist it to make it sound stronger and better? Which claim he was, Aristotle says, rightly censured. Okay, so Aristotle hated the sophists. Investigation of what Protagoras. Now they're talking about Protagoras, right? So Protagoras was a sophist. He was the guy that Aristotle hated him for his fallacious, false arguments by being able to take the wrong error-filled position and make it sound good, make it sound right. In other words, he taught people to lie professionally. He was a professional liar. An investigation of what Protagoras may have meant by these claims leads to consideration of his views on truth and reality, and specifically to the man, the measure doctrine, and the issue of relativism. So Protagoras was a philosopher who argued for relativism. This idea also comes out of Darwin, as we will see in the future. So relativism, particularly in the area of morality, is popularly seen as characteristic of sophists generally, right? So it is also very much true of atheists, because atheists rely upon Protagoras, this man, the measure. This philosophy underpins atheist philosophy. That's from the Sophist, Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. So Aristotle, who created logic, and then Aquinas built upon that foundation of logic to create scholasticism and how to find truth. What is rational? What is true? How do we know it's true? Right? So have a look at this now. This is from a thesis from 1935 that I read. I read the entire thing. Boston University. And this guy wrote really interesting thesis, really good. He talks about the history of atheism. And he says the term, however, can be used to describe the intellectual movement of the 5th century BC in Greece. This was initiated by the sophists and carried on by Socrates. The spirit of this movement is well expressed in that famous maxim given to posterity by Protagoras, that man is the measure of all things. He's speaking here of atheism. Atheism dates back to Protagoras, a professional liar in 5th century BC. It's a pagan idea. These are pagans who are saying, well, my thinking, my truth is the only truth. It is the greatest truth, right? My truth, it stands above, it is the ultimate truth. And this is where atheists stand in their philosophy, that their personal, this is also what you would call nominalism, that your idea, your personal idea, it's not related to anyone else's ideas. There's no ultimate truth. Only your truth matters. And this is pride, and this is narcissism of the highest order. Your thoughts, Sam?
So far, it's phenomenal connections that you're making. But again, no offense to my Greek brothers and sisters. You Greeks have been responsible for some great things, but some very, very evil and dangerous things. Ugh, you Greeks. But the good outweigh the bad, so we forgive you.
Yeah. So look, I've got 2 other works on atheism well, I've got one called Schmuckula Humanism, right, nice. Which is about humanism per se. Not, this was socialism, right? This was socialism. And you see, socialism is atheism, is humanism, right? Yes. And then, of course, you've got humanism itself, which is the atheist religion. So humanism now becomes the replacement to socialism. It becomes, and then I've got a book called, got a presentation called Atheism Defined. Well, atheism called Atheos, against God, which contains about 80 definitions of atheism from the top academic manuals, the top academic textbooks from the top academic PhD scholars in the world, right? So I've basically taken 80 definitions of atheism to see, because atheists are always saying, well, atheism only means, the problem is that these atheists are talking poop, because it seems like not a single PhD, Cambridge, Harvard, you name it, not a single atheist philosopher with a PhD behind his name, or any of these universities actually agrees with atheists about what atheism means and what atheism entails. So yes, Sam, that's me. I am done.
Okay, now here, God willing, can we next week? I got to drive out Thursday, so can we do it Wednesday for next week, just to confirm?
Of course we can, Sam. You send me $1,000.
That's right. And I'll be just woke. It's all about wokeism. So when I'm woke, I'll send you some cash. But so God willing, I have to do a show with Lloyd next Wednesday. I've already pinned the link to his YouTube channel. It's there it's pinned, and it's also in the description box. Not only that, but he's been invited on other channels. Earlier, he was with Kennedy Report talking about Charles Darwin and what a sadistic, evil demon he was. It's on Kennedy Report. He did it earlier today, so it should already be on Kennedy Report. Go check that out, and God willing, I'll have him do that for this channel as well. But nothing better than going to his own channel, subscribing, watching the videos, watching him live, supporting him prayerfully and financially. So the
Nice.
links are there. You see, God has blessed him. He's an expert in these fields, so much so that he got Kennedy Report in trouble. I don't know if you guys know this. Kennedy was sharing Lloyd's quotations that Lloyd got from authentic sources, from Martin Luther's Table Talks and other reputable sources. And when Kennedy Report shared some of the things that show that Martin Luther was deranged, Trent Horn of the Council of Trent, who's part of Catholic Answers, did a response yesterday calling out Kennedy for what he called misrepresentation, because Trent Horn doesn't know the history of Martin Luther, doesn't know that it was Lloyd who provided Kennedy Report, that brother Kennedy, with the citations. And so this man is causing rifts. He's shaking up the online apologetic community. So glory to the Father, Son, and Spirit. So we appreciate you. You are a lion. You're a giant. Now, next Wednesday, same time, God willing, what do you want to talk about? It's up to you. I don't mind.
Sam, I'm working through this. I'll have to decide. We can do. You know what I want to do? The Kathisma Church, Mary, and the Kathisma Church. So, hold on. Give me 1 second. I'll bring it up in a moment. But look, this is something that I'm working on that might be of interest to people. Let me just find the Kathisma thing, because this is going to be of interest to people as well. Let me just load that. While that's loading. So while I have this open, this is something I've been working on slowly for a little bit. This was a legitimate question. Where was your church before Luther? Claims to the antiquity of Protestantism examined. Okay. Now, people think I'm dividing the church by bringing up facts. I thought we as Christians are supposed to fight tooth and nail for the truth, because Jesus is the truth.
Yeah.
These are facts. Okay. Prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Right. A bunch of people will claim I'm smearing Luther, I'm making up lies, and I've invited every single one of them to meet me live in public, bring their evidence, and show me how I'm wrong. So far, no takers, but okay. Right. Now, this article, where was your church before Luther? This was a legitimate question during and after the Reformation, right? After the Reformation. So now, and what is odd is that when you go through the history of Protestant ministers and denominations trying to explain their origins, every single one of them makes an appeal through a lineage that takes them through multiple heresies. In some cases, flaming heresies.
Let's do this.
Right?
Let's do that.
So what they do is they go through a bunch of crazy heresies to prove their church's lineage to the first century, to the apostles and Jesus. And then what you find is that in many cases, they realize, like, oops, I made a mistake. The next week, it's like, oops, actually, you know what? We don't go through those guys. We go through these guys. And then the next week, they change their whole story again, because they realize that those guys have a theology that is completely at odds and rejects and contradicts their theology. So then they've got to think up a different route. Then they've got to go through no. And many of these, in all cases, they all go through some crazy, even Protestants will realize these are utter heretics, okay? Absolute bat poop, insane Gnostic heretics, right? Pagans and whatnot. So the thing is that if they have a history, why are they always making claim of, especially the Baptists are the worst at this, of claiming that heretics prove the foundation of the early church as a Protestant church, right? But the thing is, you're only Protestant in relation against something else, right? And of course, if you look at against heresies, these are the Catholics refuting the Gnostics, right? That's always the Catholics. Never see the Protestants doing it. But of course, the Protestant church was the invisible church and all that nonsense. Yeah. So what you find is that they had to turn to sola fide and sola scriptura, because when they try to claim that they had a historical lineage to the first century, that turned out to be a laughable, absolute joke. Because like when people criticize Luther, say, no, the Reformation, you had people before Luther like Wycliffe, Jan Hus, and the Waldensians, John Waldo. Okay, I'd love to see how they make that case. I'd love someone to prove to me how that works. I'd love to see that. Someone please put together a presentation. I'm dying to see it. But they had to make the switch to sola fide and sola scriptura because now they say, hold on, wait, we're in the Bible. We are biblical and scriptural because Protestantism is in the Bible in Isaiah 42, right next to Muhammad. Can you see it there?
Exactly. What's wrong with you Jesuits, man? Damn.
That's my story, Sam. But this article, I mean, this whole thing, this paper is amazing. The way it takes these claims apart, every single Protestant denomination, and they've changed their story so often. It's like you're like, these people are joking.
Exactly.
It's not just one story. It's like a million different stories.
If you want to do it next week, it's up to you, brother. You decide. You let me know. Send me a thumbnail. And God willing, he'll be on, God willing, next Wednesday. Pray for us. Pray for him. Go to his channel. Go watch the session he did with Kennedy on Kennedy Report. He's now had you on 3 times already, right?
Yeah, and I'll probably go on next week again. So,
and you also, Islam Antiquities too, because he said you're on fire. You did something with him?
Islamic Origins. Yeah, Islamic Origins. I did a show with him, and I've got more coming up. I was thinking of doing this one, the Kathisma Church, which is the first Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock is modeled after a Christian church that was destroyed and buried and rediscovered just a few years ago. So the Dome of the Rock is actually modeled after a Christian church modeled after Mary. This church was dedicated to Mary. So the Dome of the Rock is not a Muslim at all. It's originally a Christian design unique to Mary. That's the crazy part. This is the church here. It was discovered, deliberately destroyed, and buried. So it speaks of this whole church. This is a really interesting piece of history. I thought, while I work on the other one, so maybe we can do this paper that I showed you next.
Okay, next Wednesday, God willing, send me a thumbnail. We'll do that. So guys, go to his channel, watch his interview with Kennedy on Kennedy Report about Charles Darwin, how mentally sick, demonic, murderous he was, a filthy, wicked demon who tortured animals because he was a sick tool of the devil. And Lord willing, guys, tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. New York time, Michigan time, I should be going live with your prayers. Pray the Spirit fill me, revive me, and purify me. Help me to walk worthy of Jesus. Pray that the Lord will seal Lloyd. And I'll be on discussing in brief 2 Corinthians 5:21 and open up Q&A because I have to also prepare, if God wills, Lord willing, tomorrow, William and I will be doing a 2-on-2 debate on the Assumption of the Blessed Mother. So we need your prayers. This is my first time debating this topic. So join me today later, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time, Michigan time. Go to Lloyd's channel, subscribe. You haven't subscribed, make his channel go viral. Watch his stuff. Go on when he's live. Invite him to your channels. As you can see, he's on Islamic Origins. He's with me. He's been with Adam Seeker. You also were with, I always forget his name, Thaddeus?
Yeah, although this weekend past, Thaddeus had a session where they were debunking my discussion on Luther. I mean, they didn't debunk anything about Luther himself, but they claimed that Protestantism can stand without Luther. That was the conclusion, basically. Protestantism doesn't require Luther. Luther was not important.
It's okay. In time, the truth, you've already planted the seeds. May the Holy Spirit convict them like he did me. It took me a while. They're going to see that Protestantism is not biblical Christianity and it's not historic. You're hitting where it hurts. When you go to the very foundation of Protestantism, Martin Luther, and show he was demonic, he was a scourge, he was not of the Lord, that hurts. And it's difficult for someone to let go of a tradition that they've been raised in and been convinced is true. It's like when you do that to Islam. Their first reaction is denial, then anger, then attack and insult. But then some eventually go through a period of deep depression and contemplation and end up concluding, yeah, the facts are there. Facts don't care for my feelings. The man was right. And that's what we're praying for. So right now he's reacting because you shocked him. I guess when you went on and talked about Luther, you shocked Thaddeus's foundation. And don't forget, he hangs out with apologists who are Protestants, one of whom was a Rabbite Calvinist, who used to be my friends, but some of them have turned because I left Protestantism and don't want to have anything to do with me. So if Thaddeus comes out and agrees with you, it may cost him a lot. So we have to
well,
you know?
I mean, Yeah, I'm just going where the facts, where the research that I
Yes.
have, the documentation. I bury people in citations. I don't just make things up. I show my sources, right?
Yeah. No, but I mean, like I said, we have to count the cost. May God
Mm.
give us the power of the Holy Spirit to love Jesus and truth more than we love our status and position and friendships, and that we practice what we preach. And I pray I'm not a hypocrite. It's hard to admit you're wrong after so many years of believing something, and then the backlash. You're going to lose friends. They're going to demonize you. People you thought you were friends will betray you. That happened with me. A guy that I broke bread with went on a channel and slandered me because he's a coward. But the Lord exposed him as being a demon, a tool of Satan. So, but anyway,
Yeah,
you
he's
stay
that
strong,
that
brother.
quote from Pelagius, I think, has damaged his
You
credibility
better believe
because
it.
he's
And
never recanted about that statement. Yeah,
oh yeah,
using it as,
yeah,
but
he's
that's
faded.
normal. That's actually, yeah, sorry.
No, I'm saying he's faded obscurity. He's who talks about him anymore? He's a joke. People know he's a joke now. But go ahead, finish your point, brother. You were saying something.
No, it's just that yeah, you lost credibility when you appeal to heresy, which has actually been going on since the 1500s.
Yep.
These appeals to heresy to prove Protestantism, and this is it still goes on today. I had a long debate with someone um, by email who wanted to come on my show and collaborate with me, and he's a what do they call it, an open theist,
Oh
and then
yes.
he started making appeal to literal heretics to prove the legitimacy of the Protestant Church down to the first century. And I'm like, but these are heresies that you're appealing to for authority. Are you crazy?
Waldensians, the Waldensians, and the
Worse than the Waldensians, people appeal to the Cathars, the
Albigensians.
Albigensians, and
Yeah,
and
all heretics.
like, yeah,
They don't have a leg to stand. But glory to Jesus Christ. You stay strong. Pray I stay strong and healthy and holy, and not be a hypocrite, not be fake, and never shame Jesus Christ. So, brethren, I'll see you 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time, Michigan time. Come and join and make this brother's channel go viral. You have my permission. Take my stuff, his stuff, upload them, but use them. Learn the facts and use them. They can't be refuted. So they're going to attack you and demonize you. That's all they can do. Any final words, brother? We're out of here.
no, that's it. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you found something you can use and you realize the threat. Why Christianity is what keeps these ideas back. Christianity holds back the world from chaos and evil and confusion. And you have to learn your faith and you have to know these arguments and you must speak the truth. You need to be out there fighting against these insane ideologies. They will destroy us.
Yep. Amen. Glory to God. Now I heard the sirens in the back. See, the Jesuits are sending the police after you, brother. You need to end the stream and go in hiding in your cave. Okay, brother. God bless you, man.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, guys.
Take
God
care.
bless.
See you